All right, welcome to episode 5 of A&E. I'm Brody.
I'm Luis.
Magno.
All right, so it's been a while since we filmed because of a certain person that does this podcast right next to me.
That's me.
Facts. So, the last time we did this was on the 25th of March.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a while. And today is obviously June 6th. So all the information from this is from March 26th to today, June 6th. Quick thing to mention before we get started. Today is the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the Allied invasion at Normandy, which first started off with British, French, and American airborne troops dropping into Normandy behind the Atlantic Wall, and then the amphibious assault the next morning by British, Canadian, American, French, and Polish forces against Utah, Omaha, Sword, Solo, and Juno beaches. And obviously that was the beginning of the end for the Nazis in 1944. So that's something to think about. But let's get started. So we'll talk about the U.S. First off, on the 26th of March, the House of Representatives failed to overturn a veto on Trump's declaration of the border emergency, the national emergency at the border. So they're fighting it out in the courts right now, trying to get funding for the wall, and yeah, I don't know, it's just really, really confusing and political, but it's out of Congress's hands at this point, so it's really left up to the courts, whether that money's actually gonna get spent on a border wall or not, and there hasn't been much news on it since then. Okay, so we've talked about the F-35 program that they have with Turkey. On the 1st of April, the U.S. decided to halt delivery of F-35 equipment to Turkey, but Turkish pilots are still getting trained on the F-35 system. So Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, I want to say, announced that it'll get 2 F-35As for training Turkish pilots. The first group has already graduated. The second and third groups were beginning their entry-level training on the 1st of April. So I imagine they're pretty far along at this point, but not a lot of news besides that. But the whole reason this happened is because Turkey's been talking about buying Russian S-400 anti-air systems, as well as buying our F-35s. So that could pose a big problem, especially because a lot of the information on the F-35 is classified. So if Turkey were to use that and the Russian S-400 system, then potentially Russian intelligence could get a lot of info on the F-35, and that's not good, and that's why they halted delivery. So I think it was a good idea. I assume you guys think the same.
Yeah,
Definitely. Thought about that in the beginning.
You still got
Yeah.
the 35s though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they never got them?
No, I think there was a certain part that was manufactured in Turkey, and then the pilots were getting trained on it as well, but no like sales of the actual fighter were like authorized to Turkey, and now it's not going to happen. All right. On the 3rd of April, the House of Representatives passed a bill to end U.S. support for the Saudi-led coalition in the war in Yemen. but that bill was vetoed by Trump, and I don't know if they've put it up to a vote again to overturn that veto. I haven't heard anything on it since. So that's something to look out for, I guess. On the 8th, the State Department designated the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist group. So that's the first time that the U.S. government has ever designated a military as a terrorist group, and the Iranian parliament in turn designated all U.S. forces in the Middle East as a terrorist group. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say that's really significant, but it's just more tensions between us and Iran. I think it makes sense because there are a lot of studies that have come out in recent years showing that the militia groups that came into Iraq after the invasion were trained and funded by Iran. So I think it's past due. Yeah. So on the 3rd of April, the Russian military flew a Tu-154 spy plane over Area 51.
I did not hear about that.
No, it wasn't big news, which is kind of surprising, and this surprised me when I first read the headline and then I got deeper into it. It sounds like it would be a big deal, but it's not really that big of a deal, and here's why. So there's something called the Open Skies Treaty of 1992, and that pretty much all the nations that signed that treaty are saying that they're like allowing like military aircraft of other nations to like fly over military sites with supervision, right? So say we flew like a C-130, I don't know what our spy planes are, but a C-130 over like some military base in Russia. Basically what the procedure is, you like get in contact with the government, right, and they approve it, and typically they have someone on board the flight while it's flying over the area that it wants to go over, right? So you're supervised. But yeah, it's kind of weird. I didn't know about it until I read this.
But did it have to be a spy plane?
When the treaty started?
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, a spy plane is like, it's not like a U-2, you know, or anything like that. Like, it's not all high speed. It's like a recon plane, pretty much. You know.
So the Open Skies Treaty started in 1992?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right after the fall of the Soviet Union. Yeah. Alright. Again, with U.S. and Iran tensions, the Pentagon last month deployed the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group as well as a B-52 bomber task force to the Middle East after Iran threatened U.S. forces in the region. So B-52s, F-35s, and F-15s have been patrolling the Persian Gulf ever since the 13th of May. On the 24th of May, Trump ordered 1,500 more troops to the Persian Gulf area, including a Patriot missile battalion, and that's to it's a show of force, pretty much, right, to counter Iranian threats. So, yeah. Will this lead to war with Iran? No. No, because I don't think they're that stupid. If we were going to go to war with Iran anytime soon, it would have happened already. It's not going to happen now.
It's going to be like a run through with the Shia militia groups all over the Middle East against our forces.
What are the chances?
Yeah, I don't think they would risk that though.
What are the chances of like the U.S. going to like legit war with Iran? Is it
I'd say
slim or like
I'd say slim.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that stupid.
gonna have?
Because we would steamroll that country.
Yeah.
And like I'm not trying to exaggerate, but like they wouldn't last. We took Baghdad in what 23 days in '03. Iran would probably be more difficult, but it's not like going up against Russia or China. That country would get steamrolled.
Could you imagine receiving an email report to your last duty station? Oh my
Rip,
god.
I heard when you get recalled, you actually go back to your unit.
I'm not driving all the way down there.
It's like the closest place to go.
I mean, you got the reserve units out here, you know? Sure.
Yeah. You had to fill up active duty first, though. But on the 29th of April, the Pentagon announced it would deploy 320 more troops to the border to assist Border Patrol with stuff like handing out food to migrants, transportation, stuff like that. Just kind of like logistical stuff. The timeline on that is unknown. There hasn't really been much news on that since the announcement was made, but I expect it's still going to happen. On the 30th of May, a Marine fired his weapon on the border at 3 guys that were attacking him, supposedly. So he was at some like remote camera surveillance site, and he's saying that 3 guys attacked him out of nowhere when he was sitting in his vehicle, and he fired a weapon at them, and that's under investigation.
Of course.
That or get ND 3 times.
Yeah, I mean
burst, you know? Honestly, it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's why it's under investigation, right? It's a camera surveillance site. I mean, they gotta have something,
he's
right?
inside the vehicle?
That's what he said.
It's
Yeah.
very scary.
Was that like a
That's
Humvee
what I would
or
do.
just a regular vehicle?
Probably like a border patrol pickup. I don't know why he'd be by himself though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's part of the Lance Corporal, dude. He's got that Lance Corporal mindset. Hide. In a
Lance
truck.
Corporal
I mean,
by
he
himself
got out
on the
of the vehicle
border?
and
That's the
started-
worst idea ever.
Was it warning shots or actually shot at them?
Oh,
He said he shot at them.
Well, he probably like stayed behind, you know, with the truck while some, you know.
You got out of the truck and like start shooting those.
That's what I think. Some staff sergeant with a border patrol agent were like, all right, we're gonna go see what I'm talking about. All right, Lance Corporal, stay here and guard the truck. Okay, follow me.
It's a horrible idea.
And Lance Corporal's not gonna be like, oh, I don't have to walk, so it's all good with me. You know.
It's a horrible idea.
Yeah, but then again, if it's a Lance Corporal, he was probably skating.
Probably just Indeed.
Yeah, definitely. Why are there 3 bullet holes in the ground? They were- Damn.
Stupid. Alright, let's talk about Venezuela again. It's actually been a pretty slow couple months. So last time we talked about those planes that landed in Caracas, the Russian military planes. Right? You remember that?
Yeah.
So, what it looks like would happen is there's a Russian, like manufacturing, like they make helicopters, right? It's like a state-owned company called Rostec, and they opened up a center to train pilots on Mi-35s and other Russian-made helicopters for the Venezuelan Air Force. So, yep, Russians getting involved in Venezuela, we're getting involved in Venezuela. It's like the 60s all over again.
So what's going on with the Wagner group? Any more of them show up in Venezuela?
No, not that I've seen. There's not a whole lot of news on those guys, but I assume they're still there. But on April 30th, Juan Guaido attempted a military coup outside of an Air Force base in Caracas. He gathered a bunch of defectors from the military, and fighting broke out between the two sides. Throughout the day, you could hear gunfire, and there's multiple videos online of protesters getting run over by armored vehicles. The fighting died. Jesus Christ. The fighting died down by the nighttime, and that's pretty much all that's happened. It was a complete failure, pretty much. Yeah, nothing's happened since, so that didn't do much.
Any injury? Just injured guys over there? Or?
Yeah, I saw. I want to say two or three killed, and anywhere from like 7 to a dozen people wounded.
Man,
Yeah.
I saw the video. Someone really got run over. Though.
Oh yeah. If you guys
Steamrolled by
wanna, if
the
you guys
APC.
wanna look it up on YouTube, it's everywhere. It's a legit armored car running people over in the streets.
Got steamrolled by an APC.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good over there. Not at all. But on the 8th of May, Venezuelan intelligence agents arrested the vice president of the National Assembly, Edgar Zambrano. So he's second in charge of the National Assembly, right below Juan Guaido, who's the president of the National Assembly, and that's why he's declared the interim president right now, because the him and the National Assembly are arguing that the elections were rigged, and that's why he declared himself interim president until they could get fair elections out. But his VP was arrested, and he's most likely sent to, I can't remember the name of the prison, but some like infamous prison outside of Caracas for like political prisoners. So he's like probably inside solitary or being tortured right now, who knows. On the 13th of May, alright, give me 1 second here. 13th of May, Carlos Vecchio, the ambassador to the U.S. under Guaido, requested to meet with U.S. South Command, Southcom, which is in charge of pretty much South America, Central America, and the Bahamas region. That's the combatant command. So he requested a meeting with them to talk about operational and strategic assistance. And there really hasn't been news on that since. But that's an interesting development. That shows that Juan Guaido is definitely open to some sort of U.S. military intervention, and he's actually talked about direct intervention before. He's not ruling it out, so we'll keep you guys up to date if anything becomes of that. But like I said, not much has been talked about since. So I'm good on that if you guys are.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
God, I'm dying. So we'll talk about Europe real quick. So according to NATO countries of Croatia, Hungary, Slovakia, and Slovenia have signed a letter of intent to form a regional special operations component command, and Austria will soon join as a NATO partner if that happens. So pretty much what that means is like in the U.S. you have like joint special operations command, right? Like all the branches are under one command. Their special operations are, or another example would be like NORAD, right? The North American Aerospace Defense Command. I can't remember the whole acronym, but that's pretty much what it is, right? It's with us and Canada, right? Between two countries. It's a joint command. So that's essentially what they're looking at here, right? Is like a special operations command that is joined by all five of them, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. You've seen probably within the past couple of years or so, you've seen a lot of European nations, like Western and Central European nations, kind of discuss like military partnerships, right? I think a few months back I thought I saw something about France and Germany talking about creating like a military for the European Union. So this whole idea of cooperation between European countries and their militaries is not new by any means.
Jesus. All this joint ops, joint commands will make NATO obsolete, man.
Yeah. Yeah, to an extent, yeah. There's not a whole lot of point in having one big alliance, right? If all these countries that are within the alliance are just going to create their own little alliances.
Yeah, NATO's just going to become it's going to become a League of Nations.
NATO's really been struggling pretty much since the fall of the Soviet Union, right? To kind of find a joint purpose.
Yeah.
So, like, NATO was created to counter the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
Soviet Union saw that. Well, the Soviet Union saw that, and then they created the Warsaw Pact as a response to NATO, right? Soviet Union falls in 91 officially. NATO still stands.
What now?
Yeah, but why? You know? So you see NATO in Iraq and Afghanistan, Northern Africa, Eastern Africa, you know, whatever, Southeast Asia, and it's like, why? That's not what NATO was created for.
Barely NATO countries that actually helped us in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I
Well,
saw Germany, Lithuania in Iraq, believe it or not, Lithuanians.
Yeah.
The rest of like the NATO.
Well, yeah, but it's like, what, you know, the purpose of NATO wasn't to go to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue whether that was the causes for going to war in Afghanistan were justified or not, but the purpose of NATO was not to go to Afghanistan or Iraq or to even fight terrorism broadly.
Yeah.
That wasn't the intended purpose. But that's what it morphed into until pretty much within the past few years, where they've essentially taken their old purpose, countering Russia, right? Russia,
Yeah.
Soviet Union, similar enemy pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's kind of their new purpose. They won't say that outright, but that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got anything to add on that?
Not really. Just, I mean, I can see why NATO wasn't disbanded after the Soviet Union fell. It's a lot of work.
Man, not to
Right,
mention.
and they were around for what, like 40 years maybe when the Soviet Union fell.
Around for
I can see that why they wouldn't disband it. Just it's
NATO
like
was
joint
around in
task
50s,
force
right?
with countries.
Pretty sure NATO.
what's up?
NATO was built around 50s, right?
49.
49.
49.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like an alliance. You just don't want to disband alliances. I get it.
Man, not to mention Turkey.
Turkey.
We don't even really trust Turkey.
Yeah.
It's a NATO
Well,
country.
Gotta give them.
I don't know much about why Turkey was admitted into NATO. But I'll assume
They're part
it
of
was
the
so.
EU. They're part of the European Union.
Are they really?
Well, it's not. I think they are. It's
Yeah.
not only that, but we kept nukes in Turkey, right? Right at the Soviet
yeah.
Union's doorstep,
Yeah, I guess it's a stronghold.
right? Because we had nukes in Turkey, right? And then the Soviet Union put nukes in Cuba. So, yeah.
Who did it first, though? United States did it first, though.
Pretty sure it was us.
So,
I could be
so
wrong,
we gotta,
but I'm almost positive it was us.
it was us first, right? So we
Yeah.
kind of had Cuba coming to us.
Yeah. Well, that and after the Bay of Pigs invasion, right? After that failed, then Cuba was looking for help, and the Soviet Union wanted to give it. So. Yep. I don't know how Kennedy was able to avoid that from being World War III. I don't know as much about the Cuban Missile Crisis as I wish I did, but I mean the world was on the edge of a third World War.
What year was that?
63.
63, yeah.
Yeah. I'm good on that, if you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, speaking of nuclear powers, let's talk about North Korea. So,
Sarcasm.
last time we talked about that failed summit in Hanoi between Trump and Kim Jong-un, right? Trump walked away because Kim Jong-un wanted us to get rid of sanctions without making good on his promises, so Trump walked out, whatever. Well, Kim Jong-un reportedly executed 4 members of his foreign ministry by firing squad. He accused them of selling info to the U.S. before the Hanoi summit. So they've actually been talking about this, and I mean this. I put this in here in March, I want to say, right? So this is a couple months old, but they've been talking about this a little more on the news within the past couple weeks. So I guess one of the guys he had executed was his. It might have been the foreign minister. Or maybe it was like a top negotiator with the U.S. I really can't remember. But they were saying that he had him executed, but then last week other people were saying that he was still alive, but he was being punished for the summit. So I don't really know what's happening. I wouldn't be surprised if he killed him, right? Because he's done that before. He killed his uncle, which was some high up general, right, in the army. He probably killed his half brother, right? Poisoned him, and God, was that like Thailand? I can't remember what country they did that in, but I mean, like, the guy likes killing people, so these people are either alive or wishing they weren't. But All right. On the 24th of April, Kim Jong-un traveled by train to the Russian city of Vladivostok to meet with Vladimir Putin. And Kim asked Putin to mediate the negotiations between him and the U.S. But it sounds like there's not a lot of hope for that because a couple weeks ago they conducted 2 missile tests off their east coast. So, whatever. They want to act stupid again and launch their little rockets. That's not going to get them anywhere. So, on the week of May 9th, the U.S. seized a North Korean cargo ship that was full of coal in the eastern China Sea. And that's the first time they've seized a North Korean ship. But they seized it because it was violating sanctions, right? They were trying to sell that coal to some other country. And that's a violation of UN sanctions, right? You're basically you're in trouble if you're caught doing business with North Korea.
Whose country doing business with?
In that instance, I don't know, but there's been times where they've gotten caught like shipping stuff to Indonesia. I think there's been times they've got caught selling stuff to like Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of weird like third world countries.
Or are they selling like weapons or just like goods?
No, they sell. No, dude, they don't got weapons to sell, man. They need everything they could get at this point. They still have like Russian World War II submachine guns. Yeah. They can't afford to sell weapons. No, they sell like coal. That's their main export that they're not supposed to have, but that's their main export. Coal, yeah, that's what they're big on, right?
That's it? That's all there is in North Korea? Pretty much?
Pretty much, dude.
It's gotta suck, man, not being able to do business.
Well, I mean, yeah, they bring it on themselves, right? They put people in concentration camps, they...
Just in general, it sucks, I guess.
Murder people overseas, like... Oof.
I hit my toe.
I know. I mean, that's all they could export, man. They can't export food, because they don't have it. They can't export weapons, because they don't have them.
And they need them.
And anyway, like, why would you buy a gun from North Korea, right?
Why not?
That's like, because they're like 60 plus years old. Yeah. Like, you're better off, like...
I mean, it's an antique at that point, you know?
You're better off, like, giving your army high points, dude.
They don't even, like, mail out new AKs.
I doubt they even have the resources to do that. Man. And even if they do, their quality control's got to be horrible. Like, they don't have good materials, dude.
Nothing at all. Steel.
No, dude, they any materials that they have, like, they probably get from China or Russia. But China, most likely. China's their, like, biggest trading partner and officially their only trading partner. But, yeah. Long story short, North Korea's being stupid again. And
they suck.
They just said that in the beginning.
I want to give a little more context.
So, they're stupid and they suck.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Ever since like forever ago.
Thank you, Magno. Very cool.
1320.
Facts. I'm good on that, if you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
I think we established North Korea, dumb.
Facts.
Gonna have the North Korean KGB knocking at our doors later on. Alright.
You want some lead?
Oof.
Big oof.
Alright, well.
I'm gonna put a mirror right there so you can see everything you're doing on the camera. Honestly.
Alright, talk about Israel real quick. So between May 3rd and May 6th, at least 450 rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip into Israel. In addition to that, Cornet anti-tank missiles and mortars were also fired from Gaza. The Israeli Air Force responded with airstrikes. It hit 330 separate sites. The 7th Armored and 1st Golani Brigades were deployed to the border with Gaza. Tensions continued for those 3 or 4 days until a ceasefire was brokered by Egypt on the 6th. I don't know, that was obviously a month ago, but you guys probably saw that on the news. It was being talked about a lot those few days. So, yeah, just a quick mention, a little bit of context. Quick mention on Iraq. Recently they sentenced 3 French ISIS fighters to death. And that's the first time they've sentenced Frenchmen to death. And those guys have 30 days to appeal that decision. So I think they offered to send them back to France, and France said, we don't want them. So
Makes sense.
Had a trial and they got sentenced to death.
Man, can't
What,
go back.
whatever happened with that one the one that was trying to go back to America from Alabama or something?
UK, right?
And the one in UK.
Well, there was one in the UK and there was one from Alabama.
Man.
Last I heard, her dad was like trying to sue the State Department.
It's not gonna happen.
That's the government. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been a while since I heard anything on that, so yeah, I don't know. So, on April 7th, the GNA announced a counteroffensive against the LNA. On the same day, U.S. Africa Command extracted all U.S. forces from Tripoli. Now, I didn't know we had guys in Tripoli, but I guess that's kind of the point, right? But yeah, that's interesting. On the 10th, the LNA shot down an L-39 fighter belonging to the GNA over Tripoli. All right, so the days of dog fights and the potential for planes to be shot down, those days are not gone. On the 14th, Haftar traveled to Egypt to meet with President al-Sisi, who declared support for the LNA, right? So he's trying to consolidate international support for his cause. On the 21st, his forces were near the gates of Tripoli. There were rumors going around of him being supported by drones from the UAE, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. He was also in contact with Trump a little bit. I guess they had a phone call and they were discussing counterterrorism and promoting stability in Libya. So again, this is him trying to consolidate international support, and if he's able to win support from the U.S., that's big. The GNA is the government that is recognized by the United Nations, but let's be honest, we're America, and we really don't care what the United Nations thinks, for better or worse. So, if he's able to get U.S. support, that's big for him.
Yeah.
On the 3rd of May, going into May now, ISIS in Libya attacked an LNA training camp and killed at least 9 people. So, this kind of goes back to Haftar and the LNA saying that they were clearing Libya of terrorists. Does this mean that ISIS is aligned with the GNA? Who knows? But he can. He could take advantage of that and try and make that connection if he wanted to. And I'm going to assume he has, but I haven't seen any news on it. On the 5th, the GNA shot down an F-1 Mirage fighter belonging to the LNA. The GNA is saying that they captured the pilot, and supposedly the pilot is Portuguese. Portugal couldn't confirm his identity at the time that I put this in here, but this isn't the first time mercenaries have been reported in Libya. So, yeah, I mean that's interesting, right? We're seeing a lot of airstrikes. We're seeing planes getting shot down, and who knows? Maybe Haftar and the LNA are going after experienced combat pilots from other countries. It's smart. God, voice is cracked.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That was bad.
I have to edit that out. Can we edit that out?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty bad. My butthole clenched. Just edit out this whole 3 minutes right now. So I think we're good.
Toga.
The power is that equivalent of a neutron star. Alright, let's
We're
get
wasting
on.
space on this.
Shut up, bitch.
Okay, I'm good on that if you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good on that.
Actually, I haven't seen. I mean, that was a month ago. I haven't seen a whole lot of news since.
Yeah.
But whatever, we'll keep you guys up to date. Talk about Sudan real quick. So, on April 11th, the Sudanese military surrounded the presidential palace in Khartoum, capital city, and they ousted President Omar al-Bashir. The first vice president, Lieutenant General Ahmed Awad Ibn dude, I don't know how to say this name, but he's the leader of the interim military council. On the 13th, he stepped down and he handed power to Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah Abdelrahman Burhan. The military council is supposed to stay in power for 2 years before elections are being held. And I didn't put this in here, but 2 days ago, Sudanese military stormed a camp full of protesters. Right, people are protesting. They want elections now and a civilian government to be formed. But the military stormed one of their camps and killed 30 people. So, Sudan hasn't really been a peaceful place, at least in this century. and doesn't look like it will be anytime soon. All right, talk about Afghanistan. So on March 30th, Afghan Vice President Abdul Rashid Dostum survived an assassination attempt by the Taliban. His convoy was headed towards the Jazjan province, and this is the second attempt on his life that he has survived since he returned from exile in Turkey last year. On the 7th, the 7th of April, a roadside bomb outside of Bagram Air Base killed 3 Marines and wounded contractors. So, Staff Sergeant Christopher Slutman, Sergeant Benjamin Hines, and Sergeant Robert Hendricks were all killed. They were from 2nd Battalion, 25th Marine Regiment, which is a reserve unit. Staff Sergeant Slutman was a firefighter with NYPD, and these are the first Marines to be killed since Staff Sergeant Lewis Carden in 2016 at Firebase Bell. And I believe they are 6th, 7th, and 8th deaths, U.S. military deaths this year. And I want to say they're up to the 4th or 5th deaths in Afghanistan. I can't remember. That's going off the top of my head. I'm not entirely sure. But on the 15th of April, the Taliban launched an attack on the Kunduz, or the province of Kunduz, and the attack was repelled by NA reinforcements. The city was held by the Taliban for 2 weeks in 2015 before being retaken, so that city's been a hot spot, and it will continue to be for the foreseeable future. So, I am good on that, if you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. We'll talk about Sri Lanka. Quick mention. Obviously it's been over 2 months since the last time we filmed, so a lot of this stuff is old. Excuse me. If you want more up to date stuff and just more news in general, follow us on Instagram at Analyze and Educate. We put more stuff there on Instagram because honestly, if we covered everything on the podcast, we'd be here for hours. And I try and get the stuff posted as soon as it happens instead of hearing about it a month and a half later like you are right now. On the 21st of April, multiple bombs, at least 8, targeting churches and hotels around the country of Sri Lanka were detonated. Anywhere between about 253 people were killed and at least 500 were wounded. The military was deployed across the country. A curfew was put in place.
Man.
Yeah.
Was that just inside the church or outside too?
Inside the church, from what I understand, yeah.
Was it on Easter Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on Easter.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. They targeted like Catholic churches around the country and hotels for tourists, right? So they knew what they were doing. I mean, Easter, it's the perfect time to do it. Also on that day, not on that day. So on the 11th, going back, police in Sri Lanka were actually sent a warning of plans by the group. I'm gonna butcher this. National Tawhid Jamaat NJT. That's the sort of Islamist separatist group in Sri Lanka. So the police were actually sent a warning of these plans to attack churches. And after these bombings, at least 24 people were arrested in connection to these bombings. Police raided 2 homes in the city of Colombo with an explosions at both of the homes. These are separate sites. One of those explosions killed 3 officers in the raid. ISIS actually claimed responsibility for the attack. The government says that these attacks were in retaliation to the shootings at Christchurch in New Zealand that killed over 50 Muslims as they were practicing in their mosques. On the 26th, 2 raids in the city of St. Marathu were conducted. One found explosives and thousands of ball bearings, ISIS flags and uniforms. And at the second one, a shootout happened. 10 civilians were killed. 10 civilians were wounded, 6 were killed, and those 2 suspects were on the run. I don't know if they've been caught yet or not. That was, again, a while ago. Yeah, I'm good on that.
Good on that one.
Alright, quick mention. The next commander who's going to take over for U.S. Africa Command, General Stephen Townsend, testified to the Senate Armed Services Committee about the presence of the Wagner Group in the Central African Republic. So here we go, Wagner Group in the news again. I don't know a whole lot about this. I know the CAR has been in a civil war for a little bit, and there have been reports going around about Wagner Group contractors in direct combat in the Civil War. So I don't know much about it, but it's obviously a concern for General Townsend. So, and we've talked about Wagner Group before, and basically how the Russian government uses them, as a separate special operations branch that they don't have to claim. So, quick mention on that, and we will finish up talking about Syria like we always do. So, May 27th, the Russian Defense Ministry announced that Russian Special Forces and Aerospace Forces tracked down and killed around 30 terrorists that were involved in the killing of 3 Russian soldiers in late February. On that same day, the Turkish Defense Ministry announced that it carried out its first independent but coordinated patrol with Russian forces in Tal Rifat to provide stability in the ceasefire areas that were established a few years back. So, here we go. Turkey working with Russia again. Yep.
Are those Russians still in Iraq? Remember the Russian MPs?
In Iraq?
Yeah.
No, you mean Syria?
You mean Syria?
Yeah,
They're still in Syria. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing patrols with the Turks. They're still in Syria. There's a lot of them in Syria. Yep. So, On March 28th, Israeli Defense Force planes struck multiple targets in eastern Aleppo. Syrian Defense Ministry declared that strikes only caused material damage, but Israeli sources say that the targets belong to Iranian-backed forces and some casualties were caused, but they didn't really go into it more than that. So this is going to be a trend for the foreseeable future. Israeli planes striking Iranian targets in Syria. That's been a thing for at least the past year, but probably longer than that. It's not going to stop anytime soon, so you could expect that. Clashes were continuing outside the town of Baghouz, which was ISIS's last stronghold in Syria. The town was cleared, but it sounds like the surrounding areas still have ISIS cells. So fighting was going on there for at least about a couple months ago. On the 28th of March, the SDF announced that Syrian Defense Forces announced that they are preparing to retake the city of Afrin from Turkish forces. So last year, Turkey and the Free Syrian Army took Afrin from Kurdish forces, and the SDF wants to take it back.
Don't we have troops there in Afrin?
No. What's the nearest city to Afrin? There was another city they were looking at taking. I can't remember the name of it. Manbij.
There you go, that one.
Yeah. So we had forces there, and Turkey was talking about taking Manbij, but we said we weren't going to pull our forces. So on April 1st, the U.S. called on the Syrian military to withdraw from the contact line on the Golan Heights. That's not going to happen. There have been consistent reports of Syrian army and Russian forces clashing all over the country. There hasn't been any evidence to support that. So be on the lookout, but I don't expect anything to come of that. Recently, video of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, he was shown alive in a video talking about the attacks in Sri Lanka. This is the first time he's been on camera since declaring the caliphate back in 2014. And he said that more attacks are coming in Africa and France. So it went around for a little bit that he was killed in an airstrike, drone strikes, stuff like that. Same thing they were saying about Bin Laden, right? He's alive. So.
Where can you find a video, like live leak or something?
I don't know. Look it up on YouTube.
Al Jazeera's probably.
Yeah, maybe. On May 6th, the Syrian army and Russian forces began an offensive in northern Hama and southern Idlib against Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is formerly the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda, and the National Front for Liberation, which is a branch of the Free Syrian Army. So the FSA claimed that the main objective is to gain control of highways in the area, which makes sense. Northern Hama and southern Idlib are really the last stronghold for any sort of resistance to the Syrian army, excluding the Kurds in the north. So the National Syrian Army and Turkish Special Forces on that same day launched an offensive in northern Aleppo against the YPG. They made a little bit of ground, but they were beaten back by a counterattack, and not much has come of that offensive since then. On June 4th, the Israeli Air Force launched strikes against multiple Syrian observation posts, anti-air batteries, and artillery Dude, I can't talk tonight. Artillery batteries. That was a response to 2 rockets that were fired from Syria into Israel. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights say that 3 Syrian soldiers were killed and 7 foreign fighters were killed as well. So, that's about all I got for tonight. I don't know about you guys.
Was it last time we talked about the U.S. not backing the Kurds, I think, or was it that still a thing, or was that a thing?
The U.S. not backing the Kurds?
Yeah, or was it the Kurds or something else?
Is it the Saudis in Yemen?
No, I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
Was the U.S. still backing the Kurds?
Yeah.
Okay. Something I need to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos about the Baghdadi coming back in 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Well, he has to come back. Like, ISIS is pretty much defeated now.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got to show face, right?
Yeah.
They need propaganda now more than ever.
Yeah, especially what happened to them in Iraq, dude. Most of ISIS is like gone in Iraq.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've effectively lost all their territory.
Did he mention about Africa too? I think there's.
Yeah, he said more attacks are coming in France and Africa.
Yeah, they're big in Africa now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost stronghold in Iraq. They're losing Syria too, right?
Wait, I mean, yeah, I mean, these guys are like literally hiding out in like caves. Like they don't hold territory anymore. But, yeah.
Good thing, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely. But now it's a matter of
bigger nations taking
finding. Well, yeah, that and finding out where they hide, and dealing with them from there. You got anything else?
No, we're good.
Okay. So, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry it's been so long. We'll try and not do that again. Again, follow us on Instagram at Analyze and Educate, all one word. We post a lot more stuff, stuff that that would just take too much time to talk about here, because again, we'd be here for hours. And it's we keep more up to date on Instagram, right? Because we could only do this so often. If you like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it. Yeah, if you know of someone that is into this sort of thing, let them know about the channel. We appreciate all the support, of course, and stay tuned.